They said the flood barrier protecting my home was an ugly eyesore that ruined the neighborhood's appearance. The HOA ordered me to remove it within 72 hours or start paying heavy daily fines. I did exactly what they demanded. Just 3 weeks later, that same HOA board was floating across the middle of their championship golf course in kayaks, helplessly watching more than $200,000 worth of perfectly maintained turf vanish beneath floodwater. Before we go any further, tell me where you're watching from. Leave your country in the comments, because I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button because this story only gets more unbelievable from here. My name is Marcus, and I've called Cedar Ridge Estates home for the last 6 years. It's one of those polished neighborhoods where every lawn looks like it belongs in a magazine. Residents receive a monthly community newsletter, and the HOA treats every rule as if it were federal law. My property backs onto a drainage easement that overflows almost every hurricane season. After floodwater reached my back door during a Category 2 storm 2 years ago, I invested nearly $11,000 in a professional flood barrier system with aluminum panels, sealed mounting tracks, and every upgrade available. It wasn't exactly attractive, but it kept my home completely protected. The next major storm proved it was worth every dollar. While 3 of my neighbors were ripping out soaked drywall and cleaning flooded garages, my house stayed completely dry. You'd think saving my property would earn some appreciation. Instead, it earned me a certified letter from the HOA. According to the notice, my flood barrier violated the architectural guidelines listed in Section 14, subsection C of the community bylaws. It didn't matter that the system was only visible during severe storms. It didn't matter that it had already prevented major flood damage once. The board wanted it removed before the height of hurricane season. When I first opened the letter, I actually laughed. I honestly believed someone had made a mistake. They hadn't. That laugh would end up feeling painfully ironic, because I had absolutely no idea what I was dealing with. I called the HOA office. I emailed the board president, Gregory Aldrich, a man who ruled the neighborhood as though it belonged to him personally. I even offered to repaint the barrier so it blended perfectly with the trim on my house. Gregory wasn't interested in finding common ground. He only cared about enforcing control. "Rules are rules, Marcus," he told me over the phone in the kind of voice only someone who has never suffered the consequences of their own decisions could use. "If we allow your unapproved structure to stay, everyone else will want one." I answered that everyone probably should want one, considering we lived in an area that flooded regularly. He didn't care. Neither did the rest of the board. The only thing they cared about was the fact that my barrier could be seen from the 7th fairway of their beloved 18-hole golf course. According to them, it spoiled the luxury resort image they wanted potential buyers to see. That's when I finally understood. This had nothing to do with safety. It had nothing to do with the bylaws. It was all about protecting the view from a golf course. I refused to back down without trying. I brought flood statistics. I showed insurance claim estimates from neighbors whose homes had been damaged. I even presented a letter from a licensed structural engineer, confirming that my barrier met every applicable code and had been professionally installed. None of it changed a thing. The board voted 4-1 against me. They gave me exactly 72 hours to remove the barrier, or begin paying a $500 daily fine that would continue increasing week after week. I remember staring at that notice, caught somewhere between pure anger and complete disbelief. But hidden deep in the fine print was one small detail I almost overlooked, and that detail would eventually matter far more than anyone sitting on that HOA board could have imagined. 3 months before all of this, during a community meeting almost nobody bothered attending, the county's floodplain coordinator had warned the board about a growing problem. She explained that the neighborhood's aging drainage system, especially the culvert running beneath the back 9 holes of the golf course, was becoming a serious concern. If that culvert ever failed during a major hurricane, the water wouldn't simply collect where it normally did. It would redirect toward the lowest point anywhere in the community. Nobody bothered asking where that lowest point actually was. I did, mostly because I was already researching flood protection for my own property. Months earlier, I had downloaded the county elevation maps while planning my flood mitigation project, not because I wanted to be overly dramatic, but because for the first time in 2 years, my home was completely exposed. The people who had forced me into that position were about to discover exactly why that forgotten culvert warning mattered so much. 9 days after I removed my flood barrier, the tropical disturbance strengthened into a tropical storm. 4 days later, it became a full hurricane. The HOA sent out its usual seasonal email, reminding everyone to secure patio furniture, trim overgrown trees, and prepare for the weather. Then came the line that almost made me laugh. Please ensure all landscaping remains attractive for the golf course's upcoming members tournament. They were still focused on appearances, not drainage, not the failing culvert, not the warning the county floodplain coordinator had delivered just 3 months earlier, a warning they apparently forgot the moment that meeting ended. The evening before the hurricane made landfall, I reinstalled my barrier. Forget the fines. If the HOA wanted to issue another violation during a hurricane, they were welcome to swim over and hand it to me. Something told me I was making the right decision. I was. The storm came ashore shortly after midnight. For 6 straight hours, rain slammed into the neighborhood sideways, driven by relentless winds. Around 3 in the morning, every streetlight on our block flickered once and then disappeared into darkness. All I could hear was the howl of wind through the palm trees and the roar of rushing water somewhere nearby. When daylight finally arrived, my flood barrier had done exactly what it was built to do. My house was perfectly dry. There were maybe 2 inches of water on my driveway, nothing my sump pump couldn't handle. But the moment I stepped outside to look around the neighborhood, I realized something wasn't right. Not ordinary storm damage. It looked as though the landscape itself had changed overnight. The drainage channel behind my property, which normally carried runoff along the fence toward the golf course, had completely overflowed. Water had burst over both banks and was racing across the back 9 in one massive sheet, moving fast enough to sweep patio furniture across the fairway, like floating debris. I instantly remembered the county's warning. I remembered studying those elevation maps. Standing there in my rain jacket just after 6 that morning, I realized the one question nobody on the HOA board had bothered asking during that meeting was now answering itself. Water always follows gravity. It always finds the lowest ground. And after forcing homeowners like me to remove protective barriers, the board had unknowingly cleared every obstacle from its path. By 9 o'clock, the neighborhood HOA group chat was exploding with messages. Someone uploaded a video showing the entire 18th hole completely underwater. Only the flagstick could still be seen sticking above the surface. The clubhouse patio sat beneath nearly 4 feet of standing water, pressing against the glass entrance doors. The exact culvert the county had warned everyone about months before had collapsed under the force of the storm, redirecting enormous amounts of runoff directly into the community's lowest area. The golf course. Gregory Aldrich, the same man who had confidently told me, "Rules are rules," was photographed wearing chest waders, standing knee-deep beside the 9th green, silently staring at what had once been the centerpiece of the neighborhood. Without proper flood barriers or reinforced drainage protecting that low-lying section, nothing remained to stop the water. It didn't simply flood the course. It transformed it into a lake covering nearly 4 acres. Golf carts floated away. Sprinkler systems disappeared beneath the muddy water. One of the resort's expensive sand traps was completely washed away. Initial estimates placed the damage at just under $200,000. Residents were soon informed that membership fees would likely increase to help cover the enormous repair costs. Meanwhile, my house, protected by the same flood barrier the HOA had ordered me to remove, remained completely untouched. I never rubbed it in. I didn't need to. My neighbors handled that for me. Several residents shared side-by-side photos inside the community group. One showed my completely dry driveway. The other showed the flooded golf course. The caption simply read, "Looks like Marcus had the right idea." 2 weeks later, the HOA scheduled an emergency board meeting. I wasn't expecting anyone to apologize. No apology ever came. HOA boards rarely admit they were wrong. Still, something had clearly changed. The Bylaws Committee quietly updated Section 14, subsection C, by adding a brand new exemption, stating that engineer-certified flood mitigation structures would no longer be subject to aesthetic restrictions. My name never appeared anywhere in the amendment. It didn't,